Snapchat Q&A, first one. Usually when I have Snapchat Q&As, it stays on the Snapchat. I will put my Snapchat down in the description so that you guys can follow along if you don't. Let's get rolling with the first one here. I really hope you guys like this, because that's been my favorite part about Snapchat, is just getting to see all the faces and getting to, seeing, having a face behind the question, just so much better, so much better. Okay, okay, first one, here we go.
Alberto, honest question, do you actually believe Doug Miller is natural? Be honest.
Yes, I definitely believe that Doug Miller is natural. So when you look at his height and weight, there's a lot of other natural pros that compete at a similar height and weight. I think the main difference with Doug Miller is going to be that he just has numerous attachments head to toe that there's no drug in this world that's going to make your bicep attach with where Doug's attach. And a bunch of small muscle groups in his back, his quads, calves, hamstrings. So he's within the size range, and I think what freaks people out is, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a big dude, but the thing that makes Doug extra freaky is his shape. And there's just simply nothing out there that you can take that's going to have your bicep reattach itself an inch lower. So yeah, I firmly believe a lot of guys out there, again, they're just as big as Doug, they just don't look nearly as big because they don't have the same size and symmetry. So much of bodybuilding is symmetry. So much of it is symmetry. You have good symmetry, you can have stats that don't really pop at you, but what it looks like on stage is very impressive. And that's Doug, except that he's a big guy on top of that. So yeah, next question.
Alberto, I understand there's a performance-enhancing dose and a tired-suppressing dose for caffeine, but if you take too much of the performance and you become tolerant of the performance-enhancing dose, will that make you tolerant of the tired-suppressing dose?
Yeah, and that's one of the issues that people get into when it comes to monitoring their caffeine, especially during segments in their year where they're maybe dieting. Is it initially, you know, you might have just saved it for a few days when you're feeling a bit run down. Let's reword that question one more time. See, this is a tough one because, yeah, so the more you take caffeine, the more your tolerance for both purposes is going to, you're going to require more to just, you know, get going in the morning, or to just keep you alert because you need to stay up and finish studying or something like that. So there's that purpose, and then there's that other purpose where, hey, you know, you can have a few extra pounds here, a few extra reps there when you're performing, and that's why I definitely think that when it comes to caffeine, it's perhaps best used long term if you're just keeping it behind glass and you use it when you need to. I think that is when I have best been able to use my caffeine intake, especially now where, you know, my perspective or my idea of what training is versus what it was 10 years ago is very different. You know, back then I was very much about today's training session, getting those reps in today, whereas I almost train a little bit more sub-maximally nowadays, to the point where even if I have a off day, I can still make it happen. So and that's kind of been, I guess, like, and I'm kind of veering off topic here, but that's kind of been one of my beefs with this pre-workout boom, is the fact that they really have the the person overly focus on today, right now, this set, this rep. Today is a workout that's going to just take you to a different level. And that's not necessarily the case. It's more so what you do chronically. So caffeine, to me, I think it's best used when you need it, because maybe you've had a really rough week with your studying, and you want to cram in a few extra good productive nights. That's a fine reason. Or maybe you're entering the heaviest part of your training block, and it was sub-maximum up until that point, and you really want to make sure you do well during those final very challenging weeks. Or maybe the tail end of a fat loss phase. So that's one thing that I'll definitely do before I start any contest prep, is I'll actually taper back on my caffeine, so that when I start needing it, and that's what it feels like. It feels like I need it just to do my everyday things, so that I can get good training sessions. It works, but even then I try to save it until I'm at the very end of my contest prep. So the more you use it, the more you're going to require just to get through your day, and the more you're going to require to get your the training effect that you desire. Okay, next one. Let's do this.
Can I lose weight without counting calories? Also the same as gaining, but just eyeballing the protein.
Okay, question was, can you lose weight or gain weight without tracking? Yes, you can. People do it all the time. Will it happen the way you want it to happen? That kind of depends. How much experience do you have tracking using some sort of system where you're measuring what's coming in? It's not something that I generally recommend for most people, but there are some people out there that can do it. So if you've had some success using one of the many systems out there, and you want to give it a shot for this next goal, whether it be weight gaining or gaining muscle or losing fat, then yeah, give it a go. But again, I think it's a must that you should have spent at least some time being precise with your nutrition. All right, next question.
Hey Berto, what is the minimum amount of volume I can get away with and still maintain my gains? Gonna be traveling for a while, just curious.
Ooh, generally speaking, this will vary from person to person. Anywhere between a third to 2/3 of your volume, depending, I think, on how much you're eating. So if you're eating enough, you're not losing weight, I can say, hey, get close to a third, you'll be fine. If you are under eating, you're dieting, going through a fat loss phase, and maybe closer to half of your volume to 2/3 of your standard volume, I think that's a good place to start. But generally speaking, it takes a while before you start to lose mass, especially if you're muscle mass, especially if you're eating enough. One thing I would say is reprioritize your body parts. So kind of how in my logs, I've been a broken record about, like, hey, use more volume on the body parts that don't want to grow and less on the ones that just grow for no apparent reason, it seems like. The same thing on the way when you're trying to maintain and your training environment isn't exactly optimal. Give a lot of the love to the body parts that are more quickly to peace out, and the ones that just kind of stay there and they look great almost regardless of what you do. You can be a little bit more assertive and perhaps just use a third of your standard volume for those. So yeah, anywhere between a third to 2/3 of your volume, and that really depends on how you're eating. Definitely keep your protein high enough, that is for sure, regardless of whether it's a fat loss phase or a gaining, maintaining phase.
Hey Berto, so for a mini cut, how much protein is necessary to retain muscle mass? Is 1 gram per pound of body weight good, or should we go towards the 1.4 side of things? Or should I just go for one gram and then be more focused on carbs, because carbs are for our workout?
Yeah, for most people, 1 gram to 1.25 grams is going to be enough. The thing is, when I think of mini cut, I think of something that you're doing so that you can continue gaining. It's going to be very short-lived. It's usually at the higher end of your body fat set point. So because of that, you're not as likely to lose muscle, and it's going to be a very short period. So that's going to be enough. And generally, I don't see a reason for someone to go over 1.25 grams per pound. So yeah, again, we have contest prep. We have an extended fat loss phase, and then a mini cut. So a contest prep, it's a contest prep. Extended fat loss phase is one of those fat loss phases where you're like, I'm going to get into the best shape of my life this summer. Here's my 4-month project. Let's get to work. And then you have a mini cut where it's going to be very short-lived, anywhere between, some cases 4, some cases maybe 8 weeks, somewhere around there, so that you can continue gaining. Great rule of thumb is to, like, how long should a mini cut last? For every month spent gaining, not dieting, you get, I guess, 1 week of fat loss. So that's usually a good way to kind of decide whether or not you're gaining too much and your mini cuts aren't so mini. So yeah, generally speaking, a gram to 1.25 grams per pound is going to be enough.
Reduction of calories. Which one's better for body composition? Is there a difference? Does it really matter?
One more time. Can never get these to, there it goes.
A deficit induced by cardio or reduction of calories. Which one's better for body composition? Is there a difference? Does it really matter?
I think you're going to get more predictable results when it comes to controlling what you put in your body in terms of the energy balance equation, picking on that side as opposed to your expenditure. Because again, our formal activity, the cardio and whatnot, it's yes, it contributes, but there's a lot of other things that go into it which aren't necessarily predictable. So all the activity outside of the gym, which can definitely vary a lot from day to day, week to week, to depending where you are in your fat loss phase. So most people don't want to get up in between sets and walk to the water fountain when they've been dieting for, I don't know, 8 or 9 weeks. So a lot of that subconscious physical activity kind of tends to take a hike. So again, physical activity, that's going to kind of do this, even if you're really good about not missing any of your cardio sessions. So what I would say is, for a more predictable outcome, pick on the on what you put in your mouth. Way more predictable and easy to control. So good question, very good question. Okay, here it goes.
Thoughts on using soy protein as a primary protein source in one's diet and effects on development in a natural bodybuilder.
You're going to, if I'm just going to assume that you're doing it because it's cheap, and even then, I would probably cap it at about 40 grams per day. There's better alternatives than making soy protein the majority of your protein. Maybe using a better source, but just keeping it on the lower end, so anywhere between 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. Keeping your protein under that realm and using things like whey protein here and there. If it's maybe because of dietary restrictions, like you're vegetarian, something you can perhaps look into is pea protein. I use pea protein quite a bit. And this is even though I'm not a vegetarian in any form. I love pea protein, and there's some really good recent stuff out there in regards to how comparable it is to other dairy protein. So I would go with pea protein. Soy protein and using it chronically over a certain point is something that I would not recommend. So if it's because of dietary restrictions, look into pea protein. I think pea protein there's actually some ones that are actually quite tasty, because that is one thing about soy. It's typically the tastiest of the vegetarian proteins. If that's not the issue, and it's just because protein in any shape or form is expensive, I would just be a little risky and stay on the lower end of the of how much protein we generally recommend. So anywhere between 0.8 to 1 gram per pound is probably going to be okay. So yeah, check out pea protein. Chronic soy protein use after a certain point, I don't recommend. So right about 40 grams per day is where I would cap it. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna go ahead and get this uploaded. Feedback, please. And if you don't follow me on Snapchat, follow me, please. It's a little silly at times. We do a little bit of everything. However, we do have plenty of Q&As on there, and then more frequently I want to do things like this, especially if you guys dig it. Okay, I'll leave it there.